To close out this chapter on inheritance, we're going to work a couple of exercises, both related to the programming of, if not actual drawing of, shapes. We don't have enough background to actually draw any graphics on the screen, but a classic example of inheritance is the creation of shapes, such as rectangles and circles and squares and those kinds of things. So we're going to pretend like we're getting to the point where we can draw shapes, but we're not going to actually draw them. But like I said, it's a great example of how inheritance works. So we're going to start out with what's going to be our superclass, which is going to be a class called shape. So open your DOS prompt. I'm going to clear my screen. Now let's create our first class, which will be shape. So we're going to open Notepad, shape.java. Public class shape. We'll start out with two data members, x and y, so that we can have x and y coordinates. Next, we'll create a constructor method, just one this time, where we assign x and y coordinates to our shape. So x is equal to x core, y is equal to y core. Close that out. Then we want setters and getters, so let's start off with our getters. Return x, and then int get y. Left out something here. Public and public. There we go. Now the setters. And then a setter for our y coordinate. Now we're ready to create a method called set, which will set the xy coordinate of a shape. Its two parameters are x core and y core. It will call set x with x core, and it will call set y with y core. So now we have a means of setting our x and y coordinate. Last thing we need is a method called move. It's a void method. We'll use this method if we want to move a shape in some way. So we're going to have x1 and y1 as our parameters, and we're going to call set with get x plus x1 and get y plus y1 to move it. Okay, so that's our shape class, and this is going to be the superclass for actual shapes. In a real program, this would actually be something called an abstract class, because you don't actually create just a shape. You create some type of shape, a square, a rectangle, a circle, something like that. But we haven't learned how to create abstract classes yet, so we're going to go with the idea that you can create a shape, although in actuality, you probably never would. So let's save the file. And then let's compile it just to make sure everything works correctly. And everything does work. So we'll stop right there. Now we're ready to create a subclass from the shape class. So let's do that now. Notepad, and we'll create a rectangle first. .java. So the first thing we're going to do is write public class rectangle extends shape. That's to tell it that we are inheriting from the shape superclass. We'll need two data members, width and height, to go along with x and y, which we're inheriting from shape, like so. Now we can create a constructor. The constructor will have parameters for our x and y coordinates, as well as the width and the height, which we'll call w and h. We can do that here because it's a fairly small method definition. First thing we have to do is call the constructor for the superclass with x core and y core to set the x and y coordinates. Then we're going to set width equal w and height equal h to set the other two data members, our new data members, for the rectangle class. Now we can create our setters and getters. So we'll start with our getters. Public int get width. Then a getter for the height. And then setters. And then a setter for the height. And that's all we're going to do right here. What I want to demonstrate in this exercise is simply that we can create objects of these types and get it to compile. It's not going to do anything, again, because we don't really have the background to draw. And some examples might even show a simulation of a drawing where you write out the X and Y coordinates and the height and the width for a rectangle, for example, but I'm not even going to do that. That's not necessary, because I can show you what's necessary is that the rectangle class will compile when we write a program to test it, which we're going to do right now. So let's save the program. Now let's compile this class. So we're going to write javac rectangle.java, and it compiles. So now let's write a test program, and we'll call this chapter 13. Let's see, I'm not sure where we are. Let's do a quick little. We're on part 5. There we go. Public class, chapter 13, part 5. Public static void main. So we can write rectangle R1 equals new rectangle 10, 200, 5, 8. And then we can write out its coordinates. The X and Y coordinates. Now we can write out its width. And then we can write out its height. Close main, close the class. Save the file. Bring our DOS window up. Let's clear the screen. Java C, chapter 13, part 5.java. And let's run it. And there we go. So to sum up, we created a rectangle class from the shape class, inheriting the X and Y coordinate data members, as well as getX and getY methods. And we also created extra methods for getHeight and getWidth and setHeight as means of being able to describe our rectangle. So that's one example of inheritance with the shape class. In the next exercise, we're going to work another example where we create a circle class from the shape class.